Assalamualaikum and good morning everyone. Today we will be presenting our case study on surface water quality in palm oil plantation based on the environmental assessment conducted in Jerantut District, Pahang.
I will begin with the introduction to our case study, which focuses on surface water quality in oil palm plantation. Water is one of the most important natural resources in plantation management. It plays an important role in supporting crop growth, maintaining soil fertility, and sustaining the surrounding ecosystem. In Malaysia, many oil palm plantations are located near river and other water systems. Therefore, proper water resource management is very important. So, plantation management needs to maintain a balance between achieving high productivity and protecting the environment. This is because poor management of plantation activity can potentially affect nearby water resource and the overall health of the ecosystem. Understanding the environmental risks. However, oil palm plantation activity can create environmental risks, particularly to nearby river system. Activities such as land clearing and the application of fertilizer and pesticides may contribute to water pollution if they are not properly managed. During heavy rainfall, surface runoff can carry soil sediment, nutrient, and agrochemical from the plantation area into nearby river. This can potentially reduce river water quality and negatively affect the aquatic ecosystem. Therefore, our case study focused on the river system associated with an oil palm plantation area in Jerantut Pahang. Through this case, we can better understand how plantation activity may influence surface water quality and why sustainable environmental management is important. Moving on the objective of our case study. There are four main objectives. The first objective is to describe the surface water quality case study in Jerantut Pahang. The second objective is to assess the challenge of water resource management in oil palm plantation located near river system. The third objective is to analyze the environmental impact of plantation activity, particularly activity such as surface runoff and agrochemical use on river water quality. And lastly, the fourth objective is to recommend sustainable management strategies that can help minimize water pollution and improve the overall environment performance of oil palm plantation.
Let's begin with the case data and the water quality assessment. This slide summarizes the study area, sampling procedure, and the main water quality findings. The study collected 12 surface water samples from different locations within the plantation. The samples were analyzed using inductively coupled plasma optical emission spectroscopy or ICP-OES, which is a highly sensitive laboratory technique used to detect trace amounts of heavy metals. Looking at the heavy metals analysis, zinc and copper were below the recommended WHO and US EPA limits, indicating that these metals do not currently pose a significant environmental concern. However, lead exceeded the acceptable standard, making it the major pollutant identified in this assessment. This slide illustrates the possible sources contributing to the observed water quality problems. The first issue is the surface runoff. During rainfall, soil particles, fertilizer, and pesticide can be transported into nearby rivers, increasing turbidity and nutrient loading. The second issue is the application of agrochemicals. Excessive fertilizer and pesticide use may introduce contaminants into surrounding water bodies if management practices are not properly controlled. The third factor is riparian zone management. Maintaining vegetation along riverbanks is essential because these buffer zones reduce soil erosion, filter pollutants, and improve water quality before runoff reaches the river. Another important finding is the very low dissolved oxygen concentration. This suggests that organic matter decomposition is consuming oxygen within the water, creating stressful conditions for aquatic organisms. Finally, the lead concentration exceeded environmental standards. However, the exact pollution source was not identified. Therefore, further investigation is required to determine whether the contamination originated from agricultural inputs, surrounding land use, or other external sources. Now, for the critical evaluation, where it summarizes the strength and the limitations of this case study. One major strength of the study is its comprehensive environmental assessment, which combines heavy metal analysis with physiochemical measurements to provide a more complete evaluation of water quality. Secondly, the researchers used recognized environmental standards such as WHO, US EPA, and Malaysian Environmental Quality Act, making the results reliable and comparable with international benchmarks. Another strength is the use of ICPOES, which provides highly accurate detections of trace heavy metals. However, the study also has several limitations. Firstly, it only measured a limited number of pollutants. Other contaminants such as nitrate, phosphate, and pesticide residues were not analyzed. Secondly, the sampling was conducted during a limited period, meaning seasonal variations such as wet and dry seasons were not considered. Finally, biological indicators such as aquatic insects, fish populations, or microbial communities were not included. These indicators are important because they provide additional evidence of long-term ecosystem health.
Next, I will present the proposed solutions and recommendations to improve surface water quality in oil palm plantation. So firstly, to reduce surface runoff, the plantation should implement soil conservation practice such as contour planting, terracing, and cover crops. These methods help reduce soil erosion and minimize the movement of sediments, fertilizer, and pesticides into nearby river. At the same time, drainage system and sedimentation ponds should be improved, while regular erosion and water quality monitoring should be carried out to ensure that these control measures remain effective. Secondly, to improve dissolved oxygen or DO, better organic waste management is required. Plantation residue should be managed properly to prevent excessive organic matter from entering rivers. In addition, maintaining the natural river flow and conducting continuous DO monitoring will help sustain a healthy aquatic ecosystem and allow early detection of water quality problems. For the third recommendation is to control lead or PB contamination. The first step is to identify the actual pollution source, whether it comes from plantation activity or external factor. Proper machinery maintenance, safe fuel management, and periodic heavy metal monitoring are also important to prevent lead contamination from affecting the surrounding river system. The fourth recommendation focuses on sustainable agrochemical management. Fertilizer and pesticides should always be applied according to the recommended dosage and should be avoided before heavy rainfall to reduce runoff. Besides that, worker training and the adoption of precision agriculture technology can improve application efficiency while minimizing environmental impacts. Lastly, riparian buffer zones should be strengthened. Natural vegetation along riverbanks should be maintained as buffer strips to filter sediments and pollutants before they enter the river. Plantation activities near rivers should be restricted and regular inspection and restoration should be conducted to ensure these buffer zones continue protecting water quality. So overall, implementing these recommendations together will help minimize pollution, protect the river ecosystem, and support long-term sustainability of oil palm plantation. In conclusion, this case study showed that the river near the Jerantut oil palm plantation is not seriously polluted overall. The concentration of zinc and copper were still within acceptable limits, indicating that the current pollution level remains relatively low. However, the presence of elevated lead concentration and very low dissolved oxygen highlights that continuous monitoring is still essential. These findings remind us that even when pollution appears to be under control, environmental risk can still develop if proper management is neglected. The study also demonstrates that sustainable plantation management plays an important role in protecting river ecosystem. Practice like soil conservation, responsible agrochemical use, riparian buffer protection, and regular water quality monitoring are essential to minimize environmental impacts. So finally, all plantation activities should comply with the Environmental Quality Act 1974. Compliance with environmental regulations not only protect natural resource but also support the long-term sustainability and productivity of the oil palm industry. Thank you.